Have you been searching for the best ticket deals around? Well, look no further. With TixFlix, the price you see is the price you pay. And TixFlix just happens to have over $6 billion in ticket inventory just waiting for you. They absolutely mean it when they say every ticket, every venue, everywhere. And you can save even more with promo code PULSE in all caps to save you 5% off your total purchase. Just go to TixFlix.com and click the search bar. Search events based on your geographic location, pick the show you want, and bam, it's showtime. Sporting events, Broadway shows, concerts, and more with TixFlix.com. And while you're there, be sure to sign up for the email newsletter so you can stay up to date on the latest news and savings with TixFlix. That's TixFlix.com, TixFlitz.com. Every ticket, every venue, everywhere.
Welcome to the continued podcast adventures of Superhero Speak.
But I think many of the people that love this character and that love superheroes in general have used these stories as inspiration to say, you know what, I'm going to do something good in the world. I'm going to make a difference like my hero when I was a kid.
That is my fondest memory of it, because when you're doing comic books, you want them to affect people. Right. You want people to care. You want to strike emotions. And I knew that Clone Saga was striking a lot of emotions.
Can you imagine Pulp Fiction starring Goofy and Mickey Mouse?
I can totally imagine that.
I'm sure somebody's written that one too.
Quarter pounder with cheese in France, Mickey? What? Royale with cheese, Mickey. Yeah. I can totally.
See?
I would watch the hell out of that movie.
Yes, I gladly sacrifice that my progeny to you, O mighty Marvel beast.
But Neil Adams is somewhere going, it's my time.
How do you measure success?
Hey everyone, you're listening to Superhero Speak, and I'm your host Dave.
And John.
And JD. And Matt.
Matt! Oh my god!
Wait, who's that?
It's like a time machine. We went back a year.
I thought I was making a comeback for not being on for 2 weeks, and then Matt goes and outdoes me.
But not only as our good friend Matt rejoined us for this week, we have a special guest with us, guys. Indie artist and comic book creator Jason Lenox. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, fellas. Thanks for having me on the show.
No problem. Usually we start off by asking everyone how they're doing, and we'll start with our guest. How are things going with you?
Things are going good. Just busy churning out as much art as possible between my kids assaulting me at their tender ages of 4 and 6. So just trying to get as much stuff done as I can when they allow me to.
Right. Okay. So I'm going to say, before we started, Jason did point out he has been on the show before. It was back in 2016.
It was back when It's back when we were still using the iRig recorders on our phones.
Yes.
Before we even had real recorders, for crying out loud.
Wow. So we found proof of my alleged encounter? We found proof?
I pulled it up. I have it here.
Nice.
And then, of course, now we need to know, Matt, how are you doing?
I'm good. Life is great. Made some good choices lately, so I'm looking forward to this year and some of the projects I'll be working on as well. So I just felt like it would be a good idea to hang out with you guys, talk to Jason, and I don't know, man, be part of society again.
So when we last spoke, you moved out to the left coast now, right?
Yeah, the left coast. Yeah, I live in Salt Lake.
Cool.
Can I ask a question, Matt? What is that like living in Utah? I've never. I take it back. I met one really nice artist last year from Baltimore that lived in Utah, and he spoke well of it. But he was the only person I'd ever met that actually lived there. Do you like it?
Yeah, I mean it's a beautiful place. If you can get past the culture here. But yeah, okay. I like living here.
Yeah, the only other thing I know about Utah, I watched Hereditary, and I loved it. And I saw that Hereditary was filmed in Utah. And that kind of shocked me because that film was so violent and creepy. And then I think of Utah as kind of this very idyllic kind of religious place. And that film was so upsetting and awful in a good way that it shocked me that it was filmed in Utah. Just going on a tangent there.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me.
All right, and JD, you have been out for 2 weeks.
I have.
Everything going well with you? Any championships to talk about?
Yeah, matter of fact, we had the state tournament this past weekend. 10 DeKalb Barbs qualified, 4 wound up on the podium. We didn't close as well as I thought we should have, but we have our final meet of the year. It's the team championship this weekend. We'll see how we do.
Cool. So I saw your post on Facebook. Is it called Champaign?
Champaign, Illinois. That's where the University of Illinois is located.
Okay, okay. Cool. I did not know that. And your son wants to go out with you next time.
Yeah, little Andy goes, I want to go. When I get bigger, I can go with you to Champaign. And it made Daddy's heart sink.
Oh. How about you, John? Anything interesting the past week?
Well, I'm still making all the bad choices, but everything's going well. You know, catching up on anime, trying to catch up on all the freaking DC Marvel series out there. And unlike JD, I'm not really productive, but I still can't keep. I don't think any human can keep up with the sheer amount of, superhero or comic book related TV shows that are being put out at this point. You'd have to be watching TV like 8 hours a day.
I gave up.
Can I just chime in real quick? As a kid, I was born in 1975. So in the early 80s was kind of like growing to kind of enjoy comics. And I was a big Marvel fan as a kid. And you could read every Marvel book pretty easily. It was just like, here's your little monthly checklist of about 13 books. And the only Marvel media that I remember, and I watched it every week, was Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends was on NBC Saturday mornings. And if you watched that, that was pretty much it. And I remember just things like there was one episode where they ran into the X-Men. And it was like, oh my goodness, like there's another super team. So for that one 22-minute episode, you could see the X-Men kind of do their thing a little bit in the Danger Room and whatever. And like that was it. And what you guys are saying is so true because there is such a volume of material that's pumped out. I think you'd have to watch 12 hours a day, 7 days a week to even keep up with just the volume of material, the books and the movies and the web. There's so much.
Well, I tried to list it, and it's like just like right now, things that are on now: Runaways, Punisher, The Gifted, Arrow, Black Lightning, Umbrella Academy, Supergirl, Flash, Doom Patrol, Titans, Young Justice. That's just right now.
John, I'm going to help you out here. Punisher was just canceled, so you're okay.
I know, but I still have 3 more episodes to watch on the canceled part. It's like, So it's fun, a lot to that we should like try to review maybe. I don't know, but I just can't keep up with it.
I'm like JD. I gave up. My new obsession has become The Masked Singer. So
you watched that trite?
Oh my God! Please,
it is so. I'm telling you, it's horrible, but at the same time, it's fun to try to figure out who the celebrities are under the mask.
Are they real celebrities or like pseudo celebrities?
Oh, no. Let me think. Who's been on there so far? Not Cheech Marin, the other one.
Tommy Chong?
Tommy Chong.
Tommy Chong was one of them.
He's not exactly an A-list celebrity right now.
Terry Bradshaw.
He's not a singer either.
Terry Bradshaw surprisingly can sing. What?
Get the heck out of here!
No, I found out.
That's like that's like finding out that then they unmasked him and it was the masked comic from the Gong Show. I mean, it's like woo, yay, all right. Who's that again?
You got to blow the dust off of that joke, man.
I know.
The Gong Show.
Hey,
I found out that Terry Bradshaw actually released 2 country albums.
Wow.
After he was done quarterbacking for the Steelers.
Wow.
Exactly.
Did you buy him?
No.
Facts you didn't care to know.
But I will say this: she hasn't been unmasked yet. But I would say 98% sure the one in the bee costume is Gladys Knight. So there you go.
Sans Pips.
Sans Pips, exactly.
Sans Pips. Hey, Jason, what do you keep up with any shows, or do you have a life like JD?
Well, I have a full-time job in commercial heating and cooling, and I have 2 small kids. We have a house with all the responsibilities that come with that, and I have a wonderful wife. That takes up a lot of my time. And then when I'm not doing all those activities, I'm trying to do art. So I'm kind of like a focused Netflix series person because you can watch them at any time. And the last show that I finished watching, and I'm more of an indie crime person, I watched a show from Germany called Dogs of Berlin, and I loved it. It was kind of like The Shield set in modern Berlin. Great show. And then the show I'm watching now is on Netflix. It's called The Assassination of Gianni Versace, and it's a fascinating take on the whole Andrew Cunanan serial killer to the assassination of Gianni. But the last genre kind of nerd show that I watch, I'm a huge anime fan, and I've been watching Yamato 2199, and I just pre-ordered my copy of Yamato 2202, which comes out at the end of March. So that's kind of my nerd genre stuff. So that's what I'm watching right now is Assassination of Gianni Versace, and then looking forward to watching Yamato 2202. And I could talk for hours about Yamato in general if you guys ever want to go down that rabbit hole.
Oh, I missed Star Blazers from way back when.
John will.
Yeah, well.
Yeah. So, the Yamato remakes that they've done, if you like Star Blazers, it's unbelievable because I love Star Blazers as a kid. I've tried to rewatch it, and it's kind of clunky because it's from the 70s. The new redo, the redo show, unreal. It's a great show.
Yeah, well, I mean, back in the 70s when they brought those to the U.S., they like you said, they chopped them up. There were things they couldn't show, and because we were snowflakes and.
Well, right, and the animation quality for it's saying let's have hundreds of vehicles. They just didn't have the technical ability to really animate those that well. And I'm not a big fan of CGI animation, but I think for the case of vehicles, planes, and big ships, it's the best way to show them. And I said this new show, the new 2 series, because it's 2 full seasons of the show. They really strike the right tone between CGI and then cell shaded CGI for the actual animation. It's a great show. So that's kind of my nerd show right now. And like I said, nice. Then typically I watch kind of these offbeat sort of niche crime things. The Versace show is fascinating because I wasn't aware of how much damage the man that killed him had caused on his cross-country murder spree. I was a senior in college when Versace was killed, and the guy that killed him was in the FBI top 10 list, and he had killed 4 people prior to killing Versace, and the FBI couldn't catch him in time.
Yeah, we're about the same age, so yeah, I remember that.
I remember too.
So, you said you had a busy, full life, and
yes.
You tried to do art when you can. Is that? I mean, I guess that's your passion project. That's something you've always wanted to do.
Sure. Yes. Correct.
Now, did you go to school for art, or is it just something you picked up, or?
So as a young lad, I was put in private art classes when I was in kindergarten all the way through 12th grade. So a couple hours a week, I was at an art studio with a professional illustrator drawing every week for 2 hours. I went to Governor's School for the Arts for Gifted Artists in 1992, which was a state-sponsored summer program for super artists and super dancers and writers and actors. So there was a lot of talented people. One of the guys that was there when I was there was Mike Hawthorne, who works on Spider-Man now. Mm-hmm. And I know the year after I was there, the guy that plays Spock in the new Star Treks was there the year after I was there for drama. And I can't remember his name. Zach Quino, I think. But
yes, Zachary Quino.
Yeah, so he was there too. So I did that. I kind of had an internal debate as a teenager about to go to art school full-time. I didn't. I ended up going to college for business, and I got a degree in marketing and sales. And then I didn't do art for quite some time, and then I kind of picked it back up around 2008, about 10 years after I graduated from school. And then I just started really pushing it in my 30s and into my 40s now. So there's kind of my short bio.
Cool. And what are some of the books that you've worked on? You have what was the one? Cosmos? Allure to the Cosmos?
Yeah, so Lords of the Cosmos, we're working on issue 3 right now. That's my self-published science fiction barbarians book that I've been working with my partners on that since 2015, and we put out 2 full issues. We self-published them, we put them on Kickstarter, and working on the 3rd issue. So it's a science fiction fantasy comic in the vein of Flash Gordon, Masters of the Universe, and the old classic 80s cartoon Thundar the Barbarian, which I feel is criminally underrated and deserves a big budget remake. But there's another rabbit hole we can go down.
I remember that one very well too. And you're right, it was underrated. It was pretty damn good for its time.
Yeah, I mean, it really, it kind of hit a lot of notes with me as a kid. I really liked that kind of like bizarre fantasy with a touch of science fiction. I really was a big fan of the Flash Gordon Filmation show, which was the same sort of thing. And part of what led me to, make Lords of the Cosmos with my friends that are writers, Dennis and Jason, was that we all like that kind of, quirky subgenre that, is science fiction barbarians fighting against some evil cause. So that was the impetus to make our own take on that genre with Lords of the Cosmos.
In that was it the Armageddon landscape, right? It's always got to be post-apocalyptic, because
correct, post-apocalyptic and or some kind of dystopian future. Because if you look at all those things, they're all in some sort of like no rules. Is it magic? Is it science? Are there monsters? Is it their technology? And they just kind of they're good kind of melting pots of a lot of fun genres that really allows the creator to play pretty much wherever they want to in those stories. They can take it in different directions, and there's no hard and fast rules. I did a piece of World War II inspired art the other year for a friend of mine, and I got hammered by all these war geniuses that were like, you have the incorrect military hardware in this picture. And I got beat down so hard by these people, I was like, well, I got to go change everything. And one of the things that when you work in a more fantastic setting is no one can say, well, that monster is not quite right, because there's no real frame of reference, which is kind of a way to cheat a little bit.
That plasma rifle doesn't have a muscle like that.
Well, exactly. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's funny as you're talking about this, it's making me think. I can't think of any popular series or thing today that fits into that genre. The only thing I can think of, the closest thing I can think of, anyone who's a gamer should know this game for the PlayStation 4, Horizon Zero Dawn, where that's far in the future, and they basically made machines that mimic animals who ended up wiping out most of humanity, and now you're going around fighting these mechanical animals. And so it kind of fits into that, and it's back to everyone's in rags and uses bows and arrows and clubs and stuff. So it's like, yeah, other than that, did that genre die in the 80s?
Well, if you think about it, like Filmation's Flash Gordon was like 1978 or 79, something like that. Masters of the Universe was, I believe, 82 or 83. And Thundar, I think, was also 82, 83, that for whatever reason, the stuff that we kind of keyed in on is like the touchstones were all from that early 80s. And why that was and why that genre kind of went away around that time, I never really even quite thought about that. But yeah, you're right. It's kind of just gone. And obviously there's some remakes. There's a new She-Ra cartoon, but that's a remake. It isn't necessarily new.
And they changed the premise completely, so it's not what it was before.
Okay.
So, other than, because was it the death of heavy metal? You think of all the heavy metal covers fit into that genre.
Well, heavy metal. Well, Den, the classic Richard Corbin, that was also early 80s as well.
Yeah.
Heavy metal, it's still around. And shame on me. There's a pretty big name guy that's the new editor in chief, and I can't think of who it is. But if you said his name, you'd be embarrassed that I couldn't remember it. But they are still churning out material. And it started in 77, and what is it? 2019. So
no. I didn't mean heavy metal the magazine. I meant heavy metal the music genre. Where they was, like, the album covers were a lot of those, like, especially Maiden and bands like that. The album covers would fit into that genre.
And Grant Morrison is who you're talking about, right?
Yes, exactly. That's who I'm talking about.
I had to look it up. So. I cheater here, right? So
I was at a comic show about a month ago, and I was so embarrassed. There was a young woman that was talking to me, and I see her about once a year, and I said what I thought was her name, and she immediately corrected me that I said it slightly incorrectly, and I was just like, "Geez," I'm like, "You're crushing me here. I'm trying to remember your name, and you don't have a big banner behind your head with your name on it, which is an easy way to cheat." But she immediately scolded and corrected me and told me that wasn't correct, and I should make it a point to remember her name in the future. And I was like, "Whoa,
dear,
your expectations are mighty."
So besides the dystopian subgenre, what kind of other books do you like to work on?
Well, I'll kind of run you through my quick highlights and bios. So
Okay.
I started self-publishing comics in 2012, and I made 3 anthology books with some friends where I was doing everything from science fiction to dark fantasy and magic to a Western. I did a full-length 22 hand-inked Western, and then I did a couple like 1 and 2 kind of oddball filler one-pagers in and around that time. And then I was making like collected art books of my art around the same time. So I put out 3 comics and then 3 art books and then 2 full issues of Lords of the Cosmos. So I put out a total of 5 comic books and then 3 art books. And mixed in with that, there have been some interesting freelance projects. I had some art in a movie. I had a pinup in King Conan from Dark Horse, or Conan the King, or whatever they called it, around 2014. I've done some fashion work for the fashion label Off-White in Italy. And I've done some stuff for some friends' independent comics here and there, other self-published projects. And I've done some stuff for some small role-playing game projects over the years as well, some in the U.S. and some in Europe. So it's kind of been a mixed and varied portfolio. It's all been fun stuff. I'm all proud of it. So
cool. What would be the dream job? Would it be your books taking off, and a publisher working with you to, pay you so you could do it monthly, or working for one of the big 2?
That's a great question. I think if I could just have some kind of dream scenario, I think it'd be really great to be able to do Lords of the Cosmos on a monthly basis and bring in more and more talented people to work on it. And really, I think where that project should be, if it could have what it deserves, would be an animated series, because the more we work on it and the more people read it and see it, they're like, "Dude, this would be a really sweet cartoon." And I'm like, "Yeah, I totally agree." Like, I think it would be a really good cartoon. I think it'd be a lot of fun. I love it as a comic, but I think it'd be really sweet as a cartoon. And one of my favorite cartoons that I thought was really well done, even though I'm not a big fan of the franchise anymore, was the Animatrix cartoon that came out between the Matrix sequels. Mm-hmm. And I liked that we knew the source material. They allowed wildly different animation studios to work on the same material. And there's some ups and downs on that project, but overall, I think it was a really fun way to check out a property. And I think one of the fun things that we've done with Lords of the Cosmos is we've had different artists do different little short stories in each issue while I'm doing the main story. And I think that would be one of the neat things if it was an animated show, that you could have different animation studios plunk out different stuff in totally different styles. So I always enjoy seeing different people do their takes, whether it's cover songs or, guest artists that are wildly different. Like, I always love Sergio Aragonés, that worked on Mad Magazine and grew. And I think one of the fun things is every now and then Marvel would have him do like a Spider-Man pinup or whatever. And it was always fun because his style was very, flamboyant and cartoony. And some of these things that would always be very serious, they would have Sergio do his take on, the X-Men or whatever. And I think that's fun as a fan, and it's fun as a creator to see other people take your stuff in totally different styles and totally different directions. So, yeah, there's your big answer to your simple question. That would be a lot of fun for me to see that.
Cool. So, Matt, you're being quiet.
Well, I'm actually looking at Jason's site and his DeviantArt stuff. I was actually looking at your Kickstarter right now, and you got some pretty detailed work. How long would you say it takes you usually to pump out just a single page?
A single page, probably 2 full work days, probably about 15 hours to try to crank one out.
Dang. So that on top of, your family and your job.
Well, it's slow. It's slow. And it's interesting, speaking of the time it takes to make a page, one artist that I'm a huge fan of, and I loved him as a kid, and I have a world of respect for him now, is John Buscema. And one of the things about John that was amazing was not only was he incredibly talented, holy crap, was he fast. He could knock out 2 full books a month. And I was reading about his speed the other day, doing pages for doing like Conan and like an Avengers book at the same time. He was churning out, and you're just like, man, this guy, he's like an Olympic level comic book artist. Like I'm like super slow, I just was like, wow, this guy. I mean, I knew he was good. I mean, he's great, but I was like, holy Moses! Like, not only was he really talented, he was fast.
Is that like rare? I mean, I don't know anything about that stuff, but I mean, is it hard to be that fast? Because I'm assuming like there are people out there that are fast and not that good, or they're just trying to meet deadlines and they have to go fast, or they just don't care about the quality. What's
John,
like the range?
I think most people would tell you it would take you a full day to do a page, right?
Mm-hmm.
He was doing.
To do it well.
At some point, right. He was doing at some point 50 to 60 pages a month, I think, at a high level, and tight deadlines and everything else. And obviously, no one's gonna be working 7 days a week. So, again, that's where I heard that. I was just like, whoa, like he was good and fast.
He was probably up to date on all the CW shows too. The bastard.
Well, they didn't have much back then, so yeah.
Well, the other question is, I don't think he inked his own stuff, right?
I don't think he did, but again, still, I mean, having an ink, I mean, I used to hand ink everything I did. Then when we had our second child, I started to bow away from that as much as I could because I had to make a decision about, I have so much time and I can either decide to say I'll hand ink everything, or not. And I remember when I was doing one of the first images for Lords of the Cosmos, a fellow named Dave Wachter, who's a really cool artist that lives in Pittsburgh. I was sitting next to him at a show. This was like in 2014 or 15. And he said, what are you doing? And I said, well, I'm hand inking this whole thing. And I remember Dave, he said, dude, if you're doing that, he goes, you can't do that. That's crazy. And I was like, no, I want to do it this way. He goes, you'll never get anything done. Come on. And I was like, no. Like, I know more than you. And he just I remember he kindly shook his head. And then about a month and a half later, I was like, yeah, this dude's totally correct. He knows more than me. I should shut up and listen more. And I made a conscious decision to say I'm just going to focus as much as I can on penciling because, having 2 kids versus 1 kid is a lot less time. And, mostly working in odd hours, evenings and weekends and stuff. It's like you have to maximize your productivity and be able to work with others and, focus on penciling as opposed to I'm going to hand ink everything, which, again, you can do, but then does it cut your production half or 60%? So,
yeah.
What was it like turning your work over to somebody else to ink it? That's ultimately what, the readers are going to see. I guess for me, I hand ink everything just because I'm OCD like that. I want to be in control of the whole production. But yeah, you're right. It takes hours on top of, all that penciling I've done before. So what was it like for you to kind of hand over the reins to somebody else?
So that's a great question, and I'll answer it. I'll go backwards a little bit. So I've been in sales and management in my professional life since I graduated out of college in 1997. And one of the things that I learned as a younger working person was that one of the worst things that you can do is try to do everything yourself, and that you will hit a higher level of management and success when you learn to trust others and be the kind of person that can manage with other people and trust them to do a good job. Because if you try to do everything yourself, you can do that, but you'll just burn out and you will really limit what you can get done. So one of the things that I'm always trying to do is to find and celebrate other talented people that I can work with. And over the years, you do comic conventions, you network online, you talk to people, and you will find that there are many talented people around you that if you want to, do more, you're going to find a good letter. You're going to find talented colors. You're going to find good inkers. You're going to find collaborators. You're going to find writers and bring them to work with you, because I think if you're a little less refined and a little less mature, you want to compete with everyone and do it all yourself. And I used to be that way. And then again, learning to trust others, it's like dropping your kids off at daycare. Do you trust the teachers there to take care of your kids? You got to, because you can't sit and watch your kids all day and work. So yeah, it was hard. It was like giving something away. And then as I found people that I work well with, and I think they make my work better. So it was definitely kind of an odd feeling at first. And then you say, you know what, I need to trust other professional people that I work with, and I got to trust them to do a good job, because I can't do everything myself. So yeah, it was hard, but once you kind of get over the initial, oh my God, it's not me doing it, you will understand that the benefits towards speed and efficiency, I feel, are worth giving up total control, which isn't to say if you want to do everything yourself, it's a bad thing. It's just a choice of how much you can get done with limited amounts of time.
Cool, man. Thanks.
Side note, John Buscema used a variety of inkers during his time at Marvel, including Joe Bennett, Sal Buscema, and Tom Palmer. Thank you, Wikipedia.
What would we do without Wikipedia?
We'd we'd just go nuts, because there's so many things in there that you're like, what was that? And you're like, oh, this is the answer. I don't know what we did in the 80s and even 90s, because looking up these random facts was very difficult.
I used to have a whole set of Funk and Wagnall's encyclopedias. That was basically it.
I used to just make up the truth.
That was probably more fun.
We were talking about that the other day, like how dependent we've become on the internet just in a short amount of time. It's kind of scary.
Speaking of internet dependency, you did 2 Kickstarters for your Lords of the Cosmos stuff.
Hell of a segue.
Thank you. I get one of those every 6 months. So the first one was, I think you had was it a limit of 2,000, or you're looking for at least 2,000. The second was 4,000. Was that because you were leaning more on other people, or did your production costs go up? And
we did more. The book was bigger. We spent some more money to do some more extravagant things, and Kickstarter is interesting. And I used it for the first time in, I think, 2012, and I raised $1,000. And so I've done 9 of them. And Kickstarter is very interesting because it is a very concrete number of what is your popularity, right? Like people will say, I'm popular. And it's like, well, how popular are you? It's like you're $10,000 popular, or 30,000 or 5,000 or 4,000 or whatever. So Kickstarter to me is a reflection of your reputation, which is built on your body of work, how much time you spend with your fans, and how much time you spend positively cultivating that fan base so that they want to give you money for the work that you do. And I've just tried to steadily grow it. And work with my fans and spend time. And as I will tell many people, doing, what I do is very similar to running for public office. It would be if I was trying to be the sheriff or the prothonotary of a small town, where you just basically walk around saying, I'm Jason, and you should vote for me, and here's why. And you're always out just literally shaking hands and kissing babies and collecting information and keeping people excited about you as a brand. I've always tried to increase the amount, because if you keep a low amount, I think you're leaving money on the table, but you don't want to try to grow it too fast. Because if you overestimate your popularity, Kickstarter has a dark side where it's like an evil Price is Right game, where if you ask for too much money, you don't hit it, you don't get it. So you have to gauge how much your popularity is growing and be very honest about it, because you'll catch people every now and then that'll come out of left field and say, I'd like to get $50,000. And their 8 friends will pledge $20, and then they're kind of embarrassed and like they don't get anywhere close to it. So it's definitely there's a little bit of a crazy math. There's a very honest look in the mirror of how popular are you. And then there's the goal to grow it and to cultivate it and to keep people wanting to come back. So yeah, we grew it because we wanted to spend a little bit more money to make a bigger, better product.
That is actually, I think, very apt advice for anyone who wants to get started with Kickstarter, because it's a tough thing. Like, because the thing is too, you can walk in knowing like what you want to spend on a project, but that isn't necessarily what you're going to get, and maybe you have to go smaller to start out, right?
Very true. I mean, my first one, I think I asked for $1,000 to help with a little bit of printing costs and just a couple expenses. And I did it. And, and again, you grow and cultivate. And at the same time, and again, I'm going to totally slaughter this. There was a Kickstarter that the lady that writes Birds of Prey did, and it was about like superheroes turning evil. And I can't remember the name of it. But it was her, a pretty well-known artist from DC and Valiant, and my friend Dave Sharp was the letterer on it, and he does stuff for Green Lantern. And they came out and they asked for like $60,000. I think they got like 90. But here's the thing: between all the people in the book, they had decades and decades and decades of professional credits, and God knows how many conventions and appearances. And you were like, yeah, this makes sense for the amount of work that they've done,
right?
So they could go out and say, we want $60,000 for this huge, 160-page graphic novel. It made sense when you think about it. These things don't happen by accident. There's a level of what you are. And I think for some people it's difficult to say, I'm only $2,000 popular, because they want to think that they're bigger than they are, which is why I say it's a very honest and harsh look in the mirror of yourself of how popular are you? How many people like you enough to give you money? It's a big thing.
Yes.
I'm guessing it's not just like I put it up and I wait for people, and people will beat their door down to hand you money. It's you actually have to go out there and also hype it up, like, go on, I don't know, small podcasts like this one and everything to get people to drive them to it, to at least give them the chance to decide whether or not you're worth it.
Well, if you look at every major political campaign, presidential election for like the last, so many election cycles, the one thing you'll always hear is the people that won, we had a good ground game. We got the local party members to get out the vote. That's how you win. You got to mobilize voters. And in this case, it's like you got to mobilize backers. And again, are you putting in the time over, the time between your Kickstarters to make newsletters, to be on podcasts, to promote yourself in a positive way online, to engage people? Are you collecting data at conventions? Are you, keeping notes on who people that, that they're talking to, like who are they? What are they talking about? And that you're always trying to build that ground game. So when I do a Kickstarter, I'll do a financial analysis of how much it's going to cost, and then kind of go in reverse and say, if it's going to cost this much, I got to get this much to pay for it. Is this feasible? If not, cut it back. And then before I'll even launch it, you'll start to let, set things up like, hey guys, I'm going to have this go on this day. Can I be in your podcast so we can have it coincide? Hey, internet group, could you guys put a post for me for this during this time period? Hey, somewhat famous friend, could you retweet this when I put up? So you set yourself up for success or failure. And you're correct. These things just don't happen without, hey, my top 20 fans, could you back this on the first day? It'll really help get the numbers going. So you're really trying to set it up in your favor. And if you just put it out there and expect people to show up and say, oh my God, you're here, you're sorely mistaken. And again, unless you're very, very famous, it doesn't work that way. So when you see smaller Kickstarters win, it's because they were like a good election campaign. They busted their ass to get their ground game out and to mobilize their fans to say, we want you here now. We need you.
It sounds like a little bit of advice from Sun Tzu. It's never begin a battle you haven't already won.
Oh, well, exactly. Because here's the crazy thing. You can set your own goal. So you decide how hard you got to work and how realistic it is. So yeah, they always say an attorney never asks a question in court he doesn't know the answer to. So again, you're trying to make it so you can succeed. And then you have to be willing and able to put the work in to get to that point. So yeah, there's a whole crazy logic to it. But again, are you putting in the work between Kickstarters? It's a whole thing. And, I've had a lot of friends that have done them. most of them have succeeded, some of them have failed, and I watch the wins as well as the losses because you want to see, what are the things that lead to failure and success.
That is so true. Actually, that reminds me. Just wanted to take this moment, not to take away from you, Jason, but we actually have 2 announcements.
Go away.
That I meant to make earlier on the show. Number 1 is we are now part of the Pulse Podcast Network. So thanks, guys, they approached us and asked us to join. So as of this is our first official episode with them. And if you heard at the top of the episode, there was an ad for BlitzTix.com Tix Blitz. Try to say that 3 times fast. .com.
Or even once.
If you use the, so you can buy tickets from them for any kind of event, concerts, sporting events, comedy shows, and if you use the promo code PULSE right now, you get 5% off your tickets.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is 8-Bit Ray from the Gorilla Brain Podcast, part of the Pulse Podcast Network. Did you know that you could be using this spot to advertise your company or business? Well, I've done the research, and PodcastInsights.com report that podcast listeners are loyal, affluent, and mostly college educated. But most importantly, are 5 times more likely to interact with the ad they hear on their favorite podcast than an ad from any other medium. If you would like to advertise your company or brand with our network, it's simple. All you have to do is send an email to marketing@pulsepodcastnetwork.com. I'll say it one more time. marketing@pulsepodcastnetwork.com. And we hope to hear from you soon.
The other announcement is that we actually are quickly approaching our 300th episode. And we've begun to reach out to people to ask them if they would like to record a message to help celebrate our 300th episode. So if any of our fans out there would like to record something, make it under a minute if you want to say congratulations or whatever, and send it to us. Send it to me at dave@superheroespeak.com, and we will include it in that episode. All right, sorry about that.
No, you got to do that. It's important.
Yes. So we were. So you do a lot with Kickstarter. You do a lot independent stuff. But you had mentioned that you had worked. You worked for one of the Conan books.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to hang out with Tim Truman for a day, and Tim lives in Lancaster, where I grew up.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a really cool comic book store in Lancaster called The Comic Store that's been there since the 70s. And I was there at a free comic book day with Tim outside because everyone had a tent in the parking lot. And Tim had done a ton of work for Conan, and we were chit-chatting during the day. And through the course of this conversation, I was like, if you ever could, it'd be really cool to get me in the Conan book doing something. And he said, if you make something cool, I'm going to send it to the editors, and I'm going to put a good word. We'll get it in the book. And I did a pretty slick hand-ink poster of Conan fighting the spider from Tower of the Elephant.
Mm-hmm.
Sent it to Tim, and he was like, dude, you did a great job. And the editors in Dark Horse were like, sure. They put it in the book as a pinup. So that was pretty sweet. And then, if I recall, they sent me a couple free copies, so it was pretty neat.
Cool. Was that one of those moments where you felt like maybe you made it as an artist?
You know what? It was definitely cool. It felt like I got some kind of medal, like from the comic Warzone. That I'd made some different level. But yeah, it was cool. I think that's a good way to say it. I felt like I had made some new level. I mean, but all that being said, ultimately, me personally, I just try to enjoy doing what I do for myself. Anything that I get beyond, like if I was drawing in a room in a vacuum with no fans and no people, I would still greatly enjoy doing it. Having other people experience, enjoyment through my work is a bonus. But I think for me, I do it primarily for myself. And as much as we like external validation, I think I've hit a point where I'm like, if it's there, great. I hope it does get that, but if it doesn't, I just really enjoy doing this stuff on my own regardless. So that was awesome, but I still enjoyed making that piece. It was a cool piece.
Cool. All right, I'm going to ask that same question of Matt and JD. If you guys were just doing the stuff on your own and no one ever read it, would it still be satisfying?
Yeah. Depends on satisfaction, man. I mean, like, I haven't gotten thousands of readers. I mean, like, I'm not making a full-time living doing what I'm doing, but I like what I'm doing. I'm trying to grow. The shark got to move or the shark dies. But
wait. Artist dudes, like, isn't this like that age-old question of, or isn't that this thing where you should be doing what you want to do for you and not for the audience? Because if you're doing it for the audience only, you might not have as much fun, or it might not be fun for you. And
I don't want to speak for the other guys, but I mean, I think that's a model that gets you not paid anything. Like, you want to find you want to find an audience, right? That likes the same stuff you do. Like, you don't want to. It's going to be impossible to appeal to everyone and all the time, but you want to find people that dig the stuff that you want to create. And if there's nobody that digs the stuff you want to create, then you're creating for yourself.
Yeah, that's where I feel like I'm at, where I chose a niche that not too many people were, into. So, yeah, it's been fun. I mean, it's definitely been helping me, with my personal ability. But yeah, I definitely want people to read my stuff as well. And so sometimes I feel like you gotta chase your audience a little bit, give them what they want, and that's how you get return readers. I mean, that's what I assume.
You don't know yet, personally?
Well, let me chime in on this, because I think it's an interesting point that we're collectively talking about, is if you looked at a spectrum, on the one end you'd have purely commercial, on the other end you'd have non-commercial, right? So you could have someone that just takes a can of paint and sprays it on a canvas and says, this symbolizes my internal struggle. And, like, people look at it and they're like, I don't get it, or it's not really commercially viable. So if that person's going to create, it has to be supported through, like, a grant, or the person, like, starves or whatever. So it's completely art for art's sake, right? There's zero commercial value to it at all. On the other end of the spectrum would be an artist going to social media saying, whatever you guys tell me to draw that you'll buy, I'll draw it. And if the audience says, we want you to draw Black Panther or Groot or whatever, you're like, yep, if you guys will pay for it, I'll draw it, right? And that's totally commercial. And I will say this, I'm not going to judge either end of the spectrum, because if an artist would choose to go either way, that's their business and that's their prerogative. I think that most artists are going to fall somewhere in the middle, where they want people to give them money to support what they're doing, but at the same time they'll want to try to create their own brand and try to slide people towards their point of view, and not just be like, what should I draw? You want me to draw, Killmonger? That's what we'll do. And again, it's touchy, because each artist may have just a slightly different take on that spectrum of where they're at. And again, I don't begrudge anyone on any part of the spectrum, but I think what everyone's saying is they want to do their own thing, but you can't make something so commercially out there that, like, well, no one's going to read this because it's so out there. Because, at that point, what can it support itself at all? I mean, does that make sense to you guys? I don't.
No, it has to be pretty far out there for nobody to want to read it.
Right.
I mean, but
well,
I don't know.
Check this out. You look at Evangelion, the anime from the 90s, and
yeah.
It was weird because it was very commercial in some parts, but then Hideki Anno was just doing stuff that was so out there that people were like, huh? And he kind of forced you to go along with it because you loved the commercially viable parts. And it was a very interesting creative work in terms of, is this commercial or is it totally artistic? And were people buying it because they like certain parts and didn't get the rest? Because I know I was one of them. And it was very strange because it was like whipsawing between, like, very commercial and very non-commercial, but it was a commercial product.
You could say Cowboy Bebop was the kind of same thing. I mean, in a world where everybody was, in Sentai teams with huge robots, and they made this slice of life science fiction cartoon, manga, whatever. It's interesting. They come out with that stuff, and sometimes it's like being a dead artist. 20 years later, all of a sudden it's a classic, and everybody's lauding you for how visionary you were. But up front, it's like everybody's looking at you, shrugging their shoulders, going, "What is this?"
Well, and The Thing is one of my favorite movies. When The Thing came out, collectively, the country took a dump on it. And everyone's like, it's the greatest horror film ever, genius, whatever. But when it came out, it was trashed in the reviews. I mean, people just totally said it's garbage, worst film, whatever. So yeah, it's the dead artist syndrome, where when it's out and it should be supported, everyone doesn't care. But later, it's like Cowboy Bebop, same thing. It's classic, it's amazing, but at the time, so.
Right. Oh God, it reminds me. In my former life, when I was in a band, we played clubs in Philly. You play a lot of the same clubs, and you end up meeting a lot of the same bands. And in the scene, there was this one band. I can't remember the name, and I'm sorry, but this is going back 18 years ago anyway. They were all very talented musicians, and it was led by two female singers who both played keyboard. And they had a bass player and a saxophone player in the band. And they wrote these really cool, great, complex pieces, but they had no commercial sellability whatsoever, And I said that, I said that one time, I said not to be offensive, but, you guys are really talented, but, because everyone in the scene kept saying, oh, these guys are going to sign, I'm like, I don't think they can get signed because of their sound. And they were just like, thank you, because they knew they were out there, and they were like, we're making music for us, not to get signed. It's like, okay, fine, that makes you happy. But, it's that line, right? They're making music that makes them happy, and some people got it and liked it, and some people were like, these guys are weird, and then you can do everything you can and sound just like the bands on the radio, and maybe get signed.
Well, think about this, and this is a great question to ask, is why are people making art? Now, you could have one person that's like, look, I don't need to do this. I don't need to make a nickel doing it because I have money for whatever reason. And you know what? I don't care if anyone likes it. I got this crazy vision in my head, and it is what it is. That's a heck of a lot different than the guy saying, look, this pays to turn the lights on, and if this doesn't make so much a month, I could lose my apartment. Now, that guy's got a totally different set of values and motivations to do that work. So if that guy's saying, hey, if I screw around, I'm going to lose my possessions and lose my life, or my or, my home or whatever. And if it's like, dude, if you got to draw whatever's popular, if you got to draw Thanos because that's popular, he'll do it and sell it. Whereas the other person's like, dude, I'm just following. I don't care about money. If this makes no money, I don't care. This is all about a dream.
Right.
So I think you have to even gauge what is the person's purpose. And it isn't like, well, you're not making money. They may say, I don't really care.
Yeah, that was Steve Ditko. He was drawing his weird little objectivist comics I don't think anybody's ever looked at even for years. And then occasionally he would crawl back in and, do a Squirrel Girl book, something like that with Marvel. The man was, I don't think he was ever wealthy, but he certainly had enough to, make himself happy and did his own thing.
So H.R. Geiger, the guy that designed Alien, right? There's a great documentary about him called Dark Star. And he hit it big early with Alien money. So he basically took it to the bank at a young age. And this documentary about him was fascinating because one of the things that he did was he built a train at his house, right? His house, like this crazy Addams Family house in Europe. He built a train he could ride in around his yard that drove through a big robotic vagina in his backyard. and in this documentary, they're like, why did you, this thing is big. You can get it and ride. It goes in his house. You get in a room, like a station, and you ride around his yard. And they're like, Hans, why did you do that? And he's, I'm paraphrasing, but he's like, 'cause I can and I've always wanted to. And I got money. So you know what? It's what I wanted when I was a kid. And you know what? He was stinking rich, and he was creative, and you know what? It's what he wanted to do. You could say, well, that wasn't the best way to spend your money. He didn't care because it's like, dude, I got money, and I can do what I want. And you know what? More power to the guy because that's what he wanted to do. No, look, I don't know if I'd do that, but I thought it was really cool because he's like, dude, it's what I want to do. And you know what? I got alien money, so
Good for him.
Yeah, and as he was wealthy from his early projects, he did a lot of stuff that he wanted to do. And I think he was turning down stuff that he was like, don't care, because he didn't really need to care because he had done so well very early on. It's interesting to see his documentary because he's a creative that actually got to do what he wanted because it was like, I got paid.
Right.
So if you ever get a chance to check out Dark Star, it's a very interesting take on a true talent. I mean, he's a super talent, but he made it early, and he was like, I'm going to do what I want. And it kind of made me sad because I was like, wow, every creative should be able to experience that level of just, I can do what I want, freedom. And he got to really be his true self for most of his life, which I think very few creatives will ever really have the opportunity to do. But it's a great documentary about a really great person. If you want to kind of go down that rabbit hole of, I don't need to do anything you wanted me to do unless I like it.
Right. And you're talking about the guy who designed the alien creature from the movies.
Correct.
Not just the creature, like the whole production design of the film.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and he had done a bunch of he did the work for Species in the 90s, but he originally kind of got cued into movies through the 1971 or 72 Alexander Jodorowsky Dune film that never really got made. So
speaking of great documentaries,
again, it's another, you can watch that and then the Dark Star back to back. Yeah, well, and Jodorowsky's another creative that basically I think we can all agree he didn't care either.
Yeah.
I'm doing what I want, and if you don't like it, what did he say? You're not one of my soldiers.
him and his golden turds.
Oh my God. Yeah, no, I mean, that, again, there's a whole other rabbit hole, the Jodorowsky documentary. I like the part where Dali wanted to be the highest paid actor ever and burn a giraffe in the movie, and they're like, and they have Mobius draw it as a storyboard, and you're like, what?
That movie would have been either the greatest of all film ever or the most gigantic disaster. There'd have been nothing in between.
Nah, somebody already made The Room.
No. Different kind of disaster.
Oh, okay.
And this would have been way before The Room.
I'm almost like this whole interview episode. This is turning into like a real philosophical art school discussion about the merits of commercialism and art. I'm loving it. We've gone like totally academic,
which is funny coming from us. But I like
that's because we're trying to look good in front of you and
class up the joint.
Class up the joint. Put on your monocles, boys.
Obviously, we've wandered off our standard paths.
All right, so okay, well then we'll get back to pop culture. We were talking earlier about there are so many shows to watch now; it's hard to keep up. And then JD, you mentioned that they officially canceled The Punisher and Jessica Jones. And did you guys also hear that Marvel announced the first movie that will not go to Netflix is going to be Captain Marvel?
Oh God!
So the new Captain Marvel film will not go to Netflix. That's what
no,
you're
it's
saying.
It's just gonna go to the Disney Plus app instead.
It'll probably wind up on Hulu too, because it sounds like Disney and Marvel are going to be doing a lot more Hulu stuff.
Yeah. So
can I ask you guys a question? Are any of you guys going to buy the Disney streaming service? Because I haven't heard of anyone that I know that's like, I'm going to get that.
I'm going to get it. It's going to have all the Marvel stuff, all the Disney stuff, all the Star Wars stuff. I have a 3-year-old son who needs to be educated in the ways of the Force.
Okay. Yeah, if you have kids and you're a geek, you're going to wind up getting it. There's you can't really avoid it. I mean, that's what. But we've talked about this before. Disney is the only player in this that basically has so much content and so much IP that you're going to wind up with them at one point or another, even if it's only for paying for 2 or 3 months and then dropping it after you've gotten what you want out of it.
We've talked about this a bunch, like John said. I mean, and I'll reiterate that I think this is the last app. I literally think this is the final frontier. This is the last people that can go, we have our own app and make it work. We did a trial of the DC Universe app because my wife loves Young Justice. Mm-hmm. We did it for, I think it was a 7-day trial and got rid of it because there's nothing else on there that interests us in the slightest.
But Doom Patrol is on there now.
That doesn't interest me. I don't think there's nothing about it that makes me go, man, I want to watch that show. Maybe I'm alone in that, but I need more than one show to get me to. And there's not enough content to make me coming back. With the Disney Plus, like I said, my wife loves all the Disney movies. I like the Marvel and Star Wars stuff, and I got a son that's already showing interest in those kind of things. There's enough stuff to make me keep coming back. A lot of these things, like CBS, how many people have the CBS app? They just got it for Star Trek, and there's no reason to come back.
Yeah, I haven't met one person that has that CBS app. It's just like you have Star Trek, and again, I haven't even seen it, but there seems to be a real mixed reaction to that show. Like it's good or it's really bad. Not enough to merit paying for it, widespread.
Hulu has some CBS stuff on there too. They had what was I watching? Elementary. So what it was like? Are they all ganging up? Are all these streaming services they ganging up to make Hulu bigger than Netflix now, just because they hate Netflix?
Well, Hulu has been, because we cut our cord in 2014, and it used to be Hulu had basically every show that was on, terrestrial television, and CBS slowly started pulling those shows off. Mm-hmm. And then CBS tried to do their own thing, but they haven't taken everything off. And I'm not sure if CBS actually owns Elementary. If that's just the network just picked it up, there's a difference. So,
yeah,
right.
It's too much. It's
right. That's like one of the questions I was getting at is, and I've said this before on the show, and I'm kind of curious what you guys think too. I'm considering once Disney comes out, getting that and dropping Netflix. Because of if all the Disney stuff and all the Marvel stuff is going to be on Disney Plus, what's there to keep Netflix for?
See, for me, it's anime. They have, and Netflix is coming out with a whole bunch of stuff that is, just all theirs. But specifically for me, they have some really good anime shows that they've been streaming now, and you can't find those anywhere else.
And I'll say this about Netflix. I enjoy Netflix. For me personally, they have a tremendous churn and library of odd independent foreign shows and movies, which I enjoy. And for my kids, they seem to rotate to I'm embarrassed to say it, but for about 3 months, Emoji Movie. And now it's Secret Life of Pets. So they just seem to find things on there and just kind of churn through it.
How old are your kids?
My kids are 4 and 6, and just my take on my kids is that they find things. Like my older son about a year ago went batshit for the old Ghostbusters cartoon, and he was watching it, and it was on Netflix, and it was like a piece of gum. For about 4 months, he watched it all the time, and then he was just not interested. And that's why I like that, because we didn't have to go buy it. It was just yep, it's just on there, go watch it, whatever. And now he's into watching Minecraft stuff on YouTube, just the YouTube app. So they're very flighty. My younger son, now he's watching Octonauts, and before that he was watching a show called Tom the Tow Truck. So they seem to rotate stuff so fast. As a kid, I love Star Wars. My kids seem to have no interest. They're aware of Star Wars, but they don't seem to care. Not because they're being told to like it or not. They just haven't gravitated to it.
Well, you've got to tell them to like it. Geez.
I've tried to show it to them a few times, and they're just kind of they just roam away. It just hasn't caught their attention. But again, they seem to just chew on different stuff for a little bit, and then it just tosses away, gone.
Well,
that's our home.
Yeah, I have a 4-year-old nephew who goes, who watches most of the shows on Netflix Kids. Mm-hmm. So Paw Patrol and the Pac-Man thing and bunch of others. So you basically sit him down, and he's pretty smart. He's almost 5 now. You hand him the controller, and he'll flip through whatever he wants to watch.
Sure.
Yeah. So I don't know. I guess what DC needs more Jedi. I don't.
Yes. I think that's the answer.
And I'll say another embarrassing thing, and I can't stand this show, but it's on YouTube. It's called Ryan's Reviews or Ryan's Toy Reviews.
Oh.
And my younger son loves, and I'm like, oh, and and I guess the Ryan's toy family, I guess they make a freaking mint off that show. And, more power to them, because it's just, here's a toy, millions of views. And I'm just like, it's just mind numbing to watch that show with my kids, but they love it.
Amen.
Now, what makes you, what are you more upset about? That the show is just like, and not worth watching, or you didn't think of it first?
Well, you don't want both, because honestly, I'll say it's mind numbing, but if I could make millions of dollars just by having my kids roam around like my basement playing with toys, I'd be lying to say I wouldn't take it. I would. So yeah, a little bit of both.
Yeah. Unfortunately, YouTube wasn't around when my son was that small.
Yeah. It's family. They're the money making geniuses of the kid toy YouTube world. So more power to them.
Yeah, more power. Yeah, I guess so. So all right then. Wow, actually, we're at about an hour.
Yeah.
So we'll ask some of our usual wrap up questions. Of course, the big question that we always wrap up on is, how do you measure success?
Okay, how do you measure success? Are you getting better at what you're doing and making money at the same time for doing it? I think that's a good way to measure success.
Okay. Simple and to the point. I like it.
Yeah, because people will say, like, is this good or is that good? And I'm always like, look, one of the pratfalls of the internet is that there's so much talent out there that as an artist or a creator, whether you're a writer, a musician, or especially a visual artist, if you look around at too many high-end pros, it can be literally discouraging. Yeah. So wherever you are in the food chain, right, there's always people that you're better than other people, and there's people that are better than you. Don't watch everyone else. Watch yourself and just look, are you getting better? And if you can tell yourself that you're getting better on your creative journey, whatever you're doing, and if you're getting some money along the way, which shows that there is some external validation, mm-hmm. those are two good key things to watch. And again, I think that way you could take that answer and tailor it to anybody. It's like, are you getting better? Is your podcast getting better? If you could look back in a year and say, yeah, we've done a better job with this podcast and we got a little bit more advertising money, there's external validation, then good. That's success in my book.
Yeah, we do this only for our own edification at this point.
Still success.
We're alone in a room. Oh, wait.
Yeah.
Alone in a room with no you listeners, stop. You can't do 300 episodes and have no listeners.
No, we have a couple.
A couple.
Our moms listen. Cool. And of course, where can people find you online?
So my website is jasonlenox.com. That's kind of my archive of tons of stuff. Lords of the Cosmos is available on Comixology, and my Etsy store has tons of prints, T-shirts, and Lords of the Cosmos. So it's on Etsy at Lenox Art Emporium. On social media, I am on Instagram and Twitter at Lenox Artist, and then I'm on Facebook at facebook.com/Jason Lenox Illustrator. So those are if you want to find me and keep up with all of my comings and goings, those are the easiest places to find me. And I keep an updated calendar on my website under the events tab for all the shows that I do. So if you want to see where I'm at, that's the easiest place to check it out.
Cool. And then I guess issue 3 is the big thing coming out for you next.
Yeah, I'm working on issue 3 as we speak. And then the next little project that I'm going to do before Lords of the Cosmos 4, I've been hard at work on building a satanic coloring book. And I just had a pretty cool meeting with an offset printer about that project. And I was shocked with how cheaply I can make a legitimate coloring book. So I've had a line of satanic artwork going back a couple years, just doing it in my free time, and people seem to dig it, and it sells pretty well in my Etsy store. And I keep having people say, it'd be really cool if that was a coloring book. And I've heard that so many times now that I'm like, well, actually, it's already in formats to go in a coloring book right now. So when I met with this offset printer, I was shocked. So look for a satanic coloring book in probably the next 12 to 14 months.
You'd be surprised with some of the political stuff going on out there in the Church of Satan, going around trying to protect the separation of church and state. I wouldn't be surprised if that's like free advertising almost. At least it's in people's minds. So I'm not surprised that you're getting some buyers for that stuff.
Well, what I found out is that there's the Church of Satan and then there's the Satanic Temple. They're two different organizations, and it would seem that the Satanic Temple is more involved with the church and state, and they were heavily involved with the Baphomet statue. And
right. Yep.
Right, and I think people from both of those groups have been pretty positive and supportive towards me. But yes, again from listening and talking to a lot of those folks, there's a difference, and you have to be cognizant of them because they don't like to be called the other group. So
who knew there was a schism in the Church of Satan?
Who knew? But they have a movie that played at Cannes. It was I forget the name of it. It was about, they have a documentary about the Baphomet statue in Arkansas. So that was at Cannes. So it was pretty neat.
Oh yeah, they bring that statue around, all over the U.S. Anytime they can stick it in front of like a manger or something on public land.
Yeah. But and for the record, I think what they're saying makes sense. It's like, look, if you can have this, you should have nothing at these places, because if you can have one, who's to say one's more important than the other in a land that says we have religious equality and liberty? So I agree. I mean, we shouldn't have these things on public land, or let everyone have one.
Yep. Yeah.
This is possibly the strangest left turn this show has ever taken.
Yeah,
I'm digging it. I have no idea where this is going to go.
The coloring book, let's go back to it's all a big plug for the coloring book. So, who knows? Maybe the coloring book will be the project that goes haywire. Remember, what was that potato salad Kickstarter that was like, I want to make potato salad? And it made like $140,000 in Kickstarter. and like, my mom was like, why isn't your Kickstarter? I'm like, I don't know, Mom, because it's not potato salad. But who knows? Maybe the Satanic Coloring Book will become that ridiculous viral project that is like, Jason's the Satanic Coloring Book guy. And you'll be like, oh my God, film. And who knows? I mean, it's just something that I've been just doing that art on just kind of doing it in my free time. And a lot of the black and white stuff has a lot of stained glass, lots of little spaces to color. And people keep saying coloring book, coloring book, coloring book. And so I'll shade towards the more commercial when enough people keep saying it. You're like, the fans aren't dumb. They're all telling me something. Maybe I should listen to them. So,
we got to help you promote that, because it'll make us look a little bit more edgy. So,
hey, look, when we do the coloring book, promise, we'll promote the heck out of it together. I'll come on, we'll talk about the coloring book and all the characters in it, like Lilith, Baphomet, and Pig Pope. There's like a werewolf dominatrix character that I've had in a couple pieces. So yeah, we'll come on and talk about the coloring book, the adult coloring book. And again, when this drum beat started, I was like, coloring books are stupid. And then you keep seeing these huge adult coloring book projects, and you're like, maybe I'm stupid for saying it's stupid. Maybe I need to listen and stop being a know-it-all. So
maybe you need to make a coloring book of potato salad.
Well, yeah, then you'd make $250,000 and just say, I'm now potato salad coloring book guy. But no, there was a swearing coloring book where people just put, curse words with like flowers and stuff around them. And I guess it went crazy. It's the F word, stuff like that. It's like, people want to color it. Huh? Yeah.
I can't wait to share this coloring book on my Facebook page. It's going to make so many of my quote-unquote friends angry. I'm excited.
Well, I've had a little bit of hate mail over some of that art in the last year, and I always tell people I'm excited that I can make you hate something, because it means we have the freedom to give you a full range of emotions. So I'm glad this upsets you. You're welcome.
Love it.
Yeah, it's good. It's good when you can be offended by it. That's part of the point. Appreciate, have fun with your range of emotions. It's good. Be offended.
And if you were offended by any of this, ladies and gentlemen, remember your hate mail can go to jd@superheroes.com.
I didn't like what the man said about the statue at the manger scene. He's a jerk. This is America.
And on that note, boys and girls, I think we're going to put a pin in it for this week. So as always, thanks for listening, and don't let your cape get caught in the door. Have a good week.